Welcome to Bedside Biology. I'm so glad you're here. Before we begin, take a moment to get comfortable. Adjust your pillow, pull up your blanket, maybe dim the lights if you haven't already. This is your time to rest, to let your mind wander gently through ideas without effort or urgency. There's nothing you need to do except listen, breathe, and allow yourself to drift wherever feels natural. Tonight, we're going to explore something you experience every single day, but might never have stopped to truly consider. Light. Not just as something you see, but as a force that shapes your sleep, your mood, your health, your entire biology. We'll move slowly through the science, connecting ideas in a way that's meant to be calming, not stimulating. So settle in, close your eyes if you'd like, and let's begin this quiet journey together. Thank you for choosing to spend this time with us. Let's begin with something we often take for granted: light itself. We flip a switch, the sun rises, we see the world around us. Simple, right? But light is so much more than illumination. It's a language the universe speaks, and our bodies have learned to listen. When you look around right now, everything you're seeing exists within a very narrow band of reality. The colors dancing across your vision, the reds, the blues, the greens, they're all part of what we call visible light. But here's the thing. Visible light is just a tiny sliver of something much, much larger. Imagine the entire electromagnetic spectrum as a grand piano stretching across a concert hall. Visible light? It's just one octave, one small section of keys in an instrument that spans far beyond what our eyes were designed to perceive. The wavelengths we can see range from about 380 to 700 nanometers. A nanometer is almost impossibly small, a billionth of a meter. To put that in perspective, a human hair is about 80,000 nanometers wide. So we're talking about ripples of energy so minute, so delicate, that it's remarkable we can sense them at all. And yet, this narrow window between 380 and 700 nanometers contains all the colors we've ever known, every sunset we've admired, every face we've loved looking at. But beyond this visible spectrum, there's an entire world of light we can't see with our eyes. And surprisingly, we're part of it. Right now, as you're sitting or lying down, your body is glowing. Not in a mystical sense, but in a very real, physical way. Your skin is emitting infrared radiation simply because it's warm. Think about that for a moment. Every living person is a gentle beacon of infrared light. It's not something we decided to do, not something we control, it just is. The warmth of your body, maintained at around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, means that your skin is constantly releasing photons in the infrared range. These are wavelengths just beyond red, longer than what our eyes can perceive, but very much present. You are, quite literally, made of light as much as you're made of atoms and molecules. This infrared radiation your body produces can be detected without any physical contact. That's the principle behind thermal imaging, those ghostly, colorful images that show warmer areas in bright yellows and oranges, cooler areas in deep blues and purples. A thermal camera isn't really seeing you in the traditional sense. It's detecting the infrared photons streaming away from your skin, translating invisible warmth into visible patterns. In a way, it's reading your glow. And this brings us to something profound. Light doesn't just interact with our bodies through our eyes. That's the obvious pathway, of course. Photons entering through the lens, striking the retina, being translated into electrical signals our brain interprets as sight. But light also touches us through our skin. Our skin contains photoreceptors, specialized cells that can sense certain wavelengths, particularly in the blue and ultraviolet ranges. These cells help regulate our circadian rhythms, that internal biological clock that tells us when to feel awake and when to feel sleepy. So light is communicating with us in multiple ways simultaneously. Through our eyes, yes, but also through the largest organ we have, our skin. Different wavelengths carry different messages, different biological signals. Blue light in the morning tells our brain it's time to wake up, time to be alert. Red and orange wavelengths in the evening, like those from a sunset or a campfire, signal that rest is approaching. Our ancestors evolved under these natural patterns for millions of years, and our bodies still remember. Here's another way to think about it. Any object above absolute zero emits infrared radiation. Absolute zero is the coldest possible temperature, about minus 459 degrees Fahrenheit, where even atoms nearly stop moving. At that point, there's essentially no thermal energy, and therefore no infrared light being emitted. But everything in our everyday world, your coffee cup, your pillow, the walls around you, and yes, every human being is far, far above absolute zero, which means everything is glowing softly in the infrared, participating in this invisible dance of photons. You are part of this dance right now. As you breathe, as your heart beats, as your metabolism quietly does its work, you're radiating warmth into the space around you. You're a source of light, just in a spectrum your eyes weren't built to see. So when we talk about light and the human body, we're not just talking about vision. We're talking about communication, information exchange, biological synchronization. Light isn't merely something external that we observe. It's something we participate in, something we generate, something that shapes us from the moment we wake until the moment we drift off to sleep. And that's where our journey begins tonight, with the understanding that light isn't just illumination, it's information. It's the universe's way of connecting everything, including you, to the rhythm of existence itself. Now that we understand light as information, let's explore how that information becomes experience. How does a stream of photons, massless particles traveling at incomprehensible speed, transform into the image of a loved one's face or the memory of a starlit sky? It all begins in your eyes with something beautifully simple: 3 types of cells that respond to color. We call them cones, and each type is tuned to a different wavelength. One type responds most strongly to red light, another to green, and a third to blue. Just 3 notes in that grand piano we talked about earlier: red, green, and blue. But here's where it gets remarkable. Those 3 types of cones don't work in isolation. They talk to each other, compare notes, blend their signals together. When red and green cones are both activated, your brain interprets that combination as yellow. When all 3 fire together in just the right proportions, you perceive white. The entire spectrum of colors you've ever seen, the coral pink of a sunrise, the deep burgundy of wine, the silvery gray of storm clouds, all of it comes from different combinations of just those three fundamental responses. It's like having only three colors of paint, yet somehow creating every shade imaginable. Your brain is the artist, constantly mixing, constantly interpreting. The world doesn't actually contain yellow or purple as distinct things. Those are constructions, beautiful illusions your mind creates from the interplay of red, green, and blue signals. But cones are only part of the story. There's another type of photoreceptor in your eye, and these are called rod cells. If cones are your eye's day shift, rods are the night watch. They're exquisitely sensitive, so much so that a single photon, one solitary particle of light, can activate a rod cell. Think about that. The smallest possible unit of light is enough to trigger a response. This sensitivity comes with a trade-off, though. Rods don't perceive color. They're essentially binary, light or no light, on or off. This is why when you're in a very dark room, the world loses its color. You might see shapes, movement, contrasts between light and shadow, but everything appears in shades of gray. This is scotopic vision, named from the Greek word skotos, meaning darkness. It's vision by rods alone, and while it's remarkably sensitive, it sacrifices the richness of color for the ability to see it all. Rods have their preferences too. They're most sensitive to blue-green light, right around 498 nanometers. That's why, on a dark night, blue and green objects often appear brighter than red ones, even if they're reflecting the same amount of light. Your rods are essentially whispering to your brain, "I see the blue-green most clearly." Red, meanwhile, fades into darkness more quickly. This is also why astronomers often use red flashlights when stargazing. Red light doesn't trigger the rods as much, which means their night vision stays adapted to the darkness. During the day, though, under bright sunlight, it's a completely different system at work. This is photopic vision, the realm of the cones. Cones need more light to function than rods do, but what they give you in return is incredible. Sharp detail, crisp edges, and of course, that full palette of color. This is the vision you're probably most familiar with, the one you use to read, to recognize faces, to appreciate art. Your cones aren't evenly distributed across your retina. They cluster densely in two special regions, the macula and, at its center, the fovea. The fovea is tiny, only about 1.5 millimeters across, but it's responsible for your sharpest, most detailed vision. When you look directly at something, these words, for instance, you're pointing your fovea at it. The rest of your visual field is actually much blurrier than you realize, but your brain stitches everything together so seamlessly that you don't notice. Interestingly, there's a middle ground between day and night vision. We call it mesopic vision, and it happens during twilight. Those in-between moments when the sun has set, but darkness hasn't fully arrived, or just before dawn when the world is still mostly asleep. During these times, both your rods and cones are working together, sharing the load. You get some color, but it's muted, subdued. Shadows are deeper. Everything takes on a softer, more mysterious quality. This is when the world feels most liminal, most transitional. Your eyes are literally in flux, switching between two different operating modes. Some people find these twilight hours particularly beautiful, and perhaps that's because our vision itself is in a state of transformation. We're seeing with two systems at once, neither fully day nor fully night, caught in that delicate balance. And when the light fades even further, when you're in near total darkness, something curious happens. The world doesn't just get dimmer, it fundamentally changes. At very low light levels, your vision becomes almost entirely rod-based, and with that shift, color drains away completely. A red rose and a green leaf might become indistinguishable, both appearing as similar shades of gray. It's as if someone has turned down the saturation dial all the way to 0. This is the fragility of human vision revealed. We like to think of sight as constant, reliable, always there, but it's actually this delicate dance between different cell types, different sensitivities, different trade-offs, brightness versus detail, color versus sensitivity, sharpness versus peripheral awareness. Your eyes are constantly making compromises, constantly adapting. When you walk from bright sunlight into a dark theater, there's that period where you can barely see, where you have to fumble for your seat. That's your eyes switching modes, your rods slowly becoming more active, your pupils widening to let in more light. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes for your eyes to fully adapt to darkness, and during that time, your sensitivity to light increases by a factor of thousands. And the reverse happens too. Step out of that dark theater into the afternoon sun, and you're momentarily overwhelmed, squinting, shielding your eyes. Your cones take over again, your pupils contract, and gradually the world comes back into bright, colorful focus. So vision isn't just one thing. It's this flexible, adaptive system constantly recalibrating based on the light available. And it all comes down to those photoreceptors, the cones that paint the world in color and detail, the rods that keep watch when darkness falls. Together, they take streams of photons and turn them into experience, into memory, into the visual story of your life. It's fragile, yes, dependent on light, vulnerable to darkness. But it's also incredible, a miracle of biology that happens every moment, so reliably that we rarely stop to appreciate it. Until perhaps a quiet night like this one, when we have time to wonder. There's something quietly fascinating about the systems in our body that work without us ever asking them to. Your heart beats, your lungs expand and contract, and your eyes are constantly making adjustments, tiny calibrations happening every moment without a single conscious thought from you. Let's start with something you've probably noticed but never really considered: the pupillary light reflex. It's one of the fastest, most automatic responses your body has. Shine a light in your eye, and within milliseconds, your pupil constricts. That black circle at the center of your iris grows smaller, tightening like a camera aperture closing down. The purpose is simple and elegant. Control how much light reaches the retina. Too much light could overwhelm those delicate photoreceptors we talked about earlier, potentially even damage them. Too little, and you can't see clearly. So your pupils are constantly working as gatekeepers, expanding and contracting based on the ambient light around you. But here's where it gets interesting. This isn't just a local response. If you shine a light in just your right eye, both pupils will constrict, right and left together. in perfect synchrony. Even though only one eye received the light signal, both respond as a team. It's called the consensual pupillary response, and it reveals something important. Your eyes don't operate as independent units. They're connected, coordinated through neural pathways in your brain that ensure they work in harmony. There's something almost poetic about that, isn't there? One eye experiences light, and the other, in solidarity, adjusts accordingly. It's as if they're in constant communication, sharing information, making sure neither is caught off guard. This automatic adjustment happens so quickly that you barely register it. Walk from a dim hallway into a bright room, and your pupils contract before you've even consciously processed the change in lighting. It's preconscious, hardwired, a reflex arc that bypasses the thinking parts of your brain entirely. The light hits your retina, the signal travels to your brainstem, and back comes the command, constrict. All of this in a fraction of a second. But the pupillary reflex is just the beginning of your eye's adaptation story. Because while your pupils can change size relatively quickly, there's a much deeper, more gradual process happening at the cellular level. It's called dark adaptation, and it's the reason you don't stay blind when you enter a dark room. When you're in bright light, your eyes are optimized for that environment. Your cones are active, your pupils are relatively small, and everything is calibrated for photopic vision, that daytime, color-rich way of seeing. But move into darkness, and your eyes need to completely restructure how they operate. Your pupils dilate, of course, widening to let in more light. But that's just the first step, the quickest adjustment. The real transformation takes time. Your rod cells, those exquisitely sensitive night vision specialists, need to build up their stores of rhodopsin, a light-sensitive pigment that gets bleached away by bright light. In darkness, rhodopsin gradually regenerates, and as it does, your rods become more and more sensitive. This process unfolds slowly, methodically. After about 7 or 8 minutes, you'll notice significant improvement in your night vision. After 20 minutes, you're seeing much better. But for full dark adaptation, for your eyes to reach their maximum sensitivity, it can take up to 2 hours. 2 hours. That's how long it takes for your eyes to fully embrace the darkness, to wring every bit of visual information from the faintest glimmers of light. Sailors used to know this instinctively. Before going on night watch, they'd spend time in darkened areas below deck, letting their eyes adapt, preparing for the blackness of the open ocean under a clouded sky. There's something almost meditative about dark adaptation, something that speaks to a slower rhythm of experience. In our modern world, we rarely give our eyes that kind of time. We flip on lights, we check our phones, we interrupt the process. But in true darkness, extended darkness, our eyes would gradually unlock abilities we don't usually access. The capacity to see by starlight alone, to distinguish shapes in what seems like utter blackness. Now contrast that with light adaptation. Step out of a dark room into bright sunlight, and the process reverses, but much, much faster. Within seconds, maybe a minute at most, your eyes adjust. Your pupils slam shut. Your rods quickly become overwhelmed and step back, and your cones take over. The rhodopsin in your rods bleaches rapidly, temporarily making them less sensitive. This asymmetry is revealing. Your eyes can quickly adapt to brightness, but slowly adapt to darkness. And if you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense. Sudden brightness might be uncomfortable, but it's rarely dangerous. You squint, you shield your eyes, and within moments you can see clearly again. But darkness required patience, required your ancestors to sit still, to let their eyes gradually pull detail from the shadows, to watch for predators or navigate by moonlight. So built into the very biology of your eyes is this imbalance, quick to adjust to safety, slow to adjust to potential danger, fast into the light, slow into the dark. And all of this happens automatically. You don't have to think, okay, time to start regenerating rhodopsin, or better constrict those pupils now. Your visual system is constantly monitoring the light levels around you, constantly recalibrating, constantly optimizing. Every moment your eyes are asking, how much light is there? What kind of vision do we need right now? And then, without fanfare, they adjust. Even as you're lying here now, listening to these words, if the light in your room changes, if a cloud passes over the moon outside, or if the screen you might be watching dims, your pupils are responding. Your photoreceptors are recalibrating their sensitivity. The whole system is in flux, in constant conversation with the environment. We tend to think of vision as something we control, something we direct. We look here, we focus there. But beneath that conscious steering is this vast automatic network, these reflexes and adaptations that have been refined over millions of years of evolution. Your eyes are working for you every moment, solving problems you never even knew existed, making compromises and adjustments that keep the visual world stable and clear. And perhaps the most remarkable thing is how invisible this all is to your conscious experience. You don't feel your pupils changing size. You don't sense the rhodopsin rebuilding in your rods. You just see. The world appears moment by moment, and only when something goes wrong, when you're suddenly blinded by bright light or stumbling in unexpected darkness, do you get a glimpse of just how much work is happening behind the scenes. Your eyes are always adjusting, always adapting, always working to give you the clearest possible window onto the world. Even now, even in this quiet moment, they're at work, tireless, automatic, faithful. And you never had to ask them to do any of it. We've been talking about vision, about how light becomes image, how your eyes adapt and adjust to help you see the world. But there's something else happening in your eyes, something that has nothing to do with seeing at all. Hidden among the rods and cones in your retina is a third type of photoreceptor, one that most people have never heard of. These cells contain a light-sensitive pigment called melanopsin, and they're not particularly interested in helping you read or recognize faces or admire a sunset. They have a different job entirely. They're measuring light, sampling it, reporting back to your brain about the overall brightness of your environment. These melanopsin-containing cells are sometimes called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. Quite a mouthful. But what they do is elegant in its simplicity. They detect ambient light levels and send that information directly to a tiny region deep in your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. This region, no bigger than a grain of rice, sits just above where your optic nerves cross, and it serves as your body's master clock. Your circadian clock, the internal timekeeper that orchestrates the rhythm of your entire biology. Think about what this means for a moment. Light entering your eyes isn't just creating images, it's literally setting the time on your biological clock. Every morning, when sunlight streams through your window, these melanopsin cells are registering that brightness and sending a message. It's daytime, time to wake up, time to be alert. And in the evening, as light fades, the absence of that signal tells your brain, day is ending, time to wind down, time to prepare for sleep. This system operates completely outside of your conscious awareness. You're not seeing this light in the traditional sense. Your brain isn't constructing an image from these melanopsin signals. Instead, it's receiving pure information, bright or dim, day or night, time to be awake or time to rest. And here's where it gets even more interesting. These non-image forming pathways don't just connect to your circadian clock. They branch out to other regions of your brain, areas involved in emotion, cognition, alertness, even mood regulation. Light, it turns out, has direct access to the very systems that govern how you feel. Have you ever noticed how a bright, sunny day can lift your spirits? How a gray, overcast week can leave you feeling sluggish, a bit melancholy? That's not just psychological association or learned behavior. It's partially mediated by these direct pathways from your retina to emotion centers in your brain. Light is influencing your limbic system, your hypothalamus, regions that produce hormones and neurotransmitters that shape your emotional landscape. Blue light, in particular, the kind that's abundant in morning sunlight, is especially powerful at triggering these melanopsin cells. That's why exposure to bright blue light in the morning can make you feel more alert, more focused, more ready to engage with the day. And it's also why blue light from screens late at night can be so disruptive to sleep. Your brain receives that blue light signal and interprets it as, wait, it's still daytime. Don't produce melatonin yet. Stay awake. Your circadian system, driven by these light-sensing cells, doesn't care that the light is coming from a phone or a laptop. It just knows. Blue light equals day, and day equals alertness. So your body holds off on the biological processes associated with sleep, even though it might be 11 at night and you're exhausted. This is light operating as a neurobiological regulator, not helping you see, but helping you synchronize with the world's natural rhythm. And the fascinating thing is, this system is so fundamental, so deeply wired into our biology, that it functions even in people who are completely blind. Yes, even without functional vision, without the ability to see shapes, colors, faces, or text, these melanopsin cells can still detect light. There are documented cases of individuals who have lost all image-forming vision due to damage to their rods and cones, yet their circadian rhythms remain synchronized to the day-night cycle. They can't see the sunrise, but their brains still know it's happening. The light is still getting through, still delivering its message to that master clock deep in the hypothalamus. This reveals something profound about the nature of light and biology. Vision, the ability to form images, is just one application of light detection. But the more ancient, more fundamental use might be this: timekeeping, synchronization. Long before eyes evolved to see predators or find food, photoreceptors existed simply to tell organisms when it was day and when it was night. to coordinate internal biology with the external world. We carry that ancient system with us still. It's there in your retina right now, quietly measuring the light around you, sending signals to your brain that you'll never consciously perceive but that shape your entire day. These pathways influence when you feel tired, when you feel alert. They affect your hormone production. Cortisol rises in the morning, melatonin at night, both partially orchestrated by light exposure. They even influence your body temperature, which follows a circadian pattern, dipping lowest in the early morning hours and rising throughout the day. And mood. This is perhaps one of the most striking examples. Seasonal affective disorder, that depression that some people experience during the darker months of winter, is thought to be partially driven by insufficient light exposure. The shortened days, the weaker sunlight, the tendency to spend more time indoors, all of this reduces the light signal reaching those melanopsin cells. The circadian system becomes less synchronized, neurotransmitter production shifts, and mood can darken along with the days. Light therapy, where people sit in front of bright light boxes that mimic the spectrum of natural daylight, has proven effective for many people with seasonal depression, not because they're seeing anything therapeutic, but because that bright light is reaching those melanopsin cells, reactivating those non-image forming pathways, resetting the circadian clock, and normalizing the neurochemical cascades that support stable mood. So light isn't just entering your eyes to create the experience of vision. It's entering to regulate, to synchronize, to inform your brain about where you are in the cycle of day and night. It's a Zeitgeber, a German word meaning time giver, an external cue that entrains your internal rhythms. And this happens constantly, automatically, beneath the threshold of awareness. Right now, the light in your environment, whether it's dim lamplight, the glow of a screen, or darkness punctuated by a nightlight, is communicating with your brain. It's telling your circadian clock what time it is. It's influencing whether your body is preparing for sleep or trying to stay alert. It's subtly shaping your emotional baseline. You might think you're just sitting here, listening, perhaps ready to drift off to sleep. But your melanopsin cells are still on duty, still measuring, still sending their reports upward through neural pathways that bypass the visual cortex entirely. Light is reaching your brain not as image but as information, not as something to see but as something to feel, to internalize, to synchronize with. This is light beyond vision, light as a biological regulator, a hormonal conductor, a mood modulator. And it's been doing this work since long before humans existed, since before complex eyes evolved, since the first primitive organisms learned to tell day from night. We are, all of us, still those organisms in some ways, still responding to light not just with our conscious minds, but with ancient systems that connect directly to the core of who we are. And perhaps on some level, that's why light feels so fundamental to our experience, why we're drawn to sunlight, why darkness affects us, why the quality of light in a room can change how we feel, even when we're not quite sure why. It's not just what we see, it's what the light is doing to us, quietly, always, beneath everything else. We've arrived at the heart of the story now, the place where light and sleep meet, where biology and behavior intertwine in ways that shape every night of your life. Your body runs on time, not clock time, not the arbitrary hours and minutes we've imposed on the world, but biological time. Deep within your brain, that tiny suprachiasmatic nucleus we mentioned earlier is orchestrating a symphony of rhythms. Body temperature rising and falling, hormones ebbing and flowing, alertness waxing and waning, all of it following a roughly 24-hour cycle. This is your circadian rhythm, from the Latin circa diem, about a day. And while this internal clock can run on its own, maintaining its rhythm even in complete isolation from the outside world, it doesn't want to. It wants to synchronize. It wants to align itself with something external, something reliable. That something is light. Every day, your circadian clock checks in with the outside world through those melanopsin cells in your retina. It asks, what time is it really? And light answers. Bright light in the morning tells your clock, this is the beginning of the day. Reset to this point. The gradual dimming of evening light whispers, day is ending. Prepare for night. This constant synchronization keeps your internal rhythm aligned with the external world, ensuring that you feel sleepy when it's actually nighttime and alert when the sun is up. But this system, elegant as it is, depends on certain assumptions. Assumptions that held true for millions of years of human evolution. It assumes that light means day and darkness means night. It assumes that the brightest light you'll encounter is the sun. It assumes that when the sun sets, the world will gradually dim, and your body can begin its nightly preparations. And at the center of those preparations is a hormone called melatonin. Melatonin is often called the darkness hormone, and for good reason. It's released primarily at night, secreted by a small pine cone-shaped gland deep in your brain called the pineal gland. As evening arrives and light levels drop, your circadian clock sends a signal. Begin melatonin production. And as melatonin levels rise in your bloodstream, you start to feel that familiar sensation, drowsiness, the gentle pull towards sleep. Melatonin doesn't force you to sleep exactly. It's more like it opens the door, makes sleep possible, creates the biological conditions that allow sleep to occur. It lowers your core body temperature slightly. It reduces alertness. It signals to every system in your body, night is here and it's time to rest. But here's the crucial part. Light suppresses melatonin production. Not just a little, dramatically. Expose your eyes to bright light, and your pineal gland stops releasing melatonin almost immediately. This makes perfect sense from an evolutionary perspective. If you're experiencing bright light, it must be daytime. And daytime is not the time to be sleepy. Your body needs you alert, aware, ready to navigate the world. And not all light is equal in its power to suppress melatonin. Blue light, those shorter wavelengths around 460 to 480 nanometers, is the most potent suppressant. Remember those melanopsin cells? They're maximally sensitive to blue light. So blue light sends the strongest possible signal to your circadian clock. It's daytime. Stay awake. Do not release melatonin. In nature, the light richest in blue wavelengths is the midday sun, particularly the clear blue sky. So your circadian system evolved to treat blue light as a reliable indicator of the middle of the day, the time when you should be most alert and active. Now, think about what happens when you're exposed to blue light in the evening. Maybe you're scrolling through your phone, watching television, working on a laptop. These devices emit significant amounts of blue light, and your melanopsin cells, those ancient timekeepers, don't know the difference between blue light from a screen and blue light from the sky. They just detect the wavelength and report back, blue light detected, it must be daytime. So your circadian clock gets confused. It delays the release of melatonin. It pushes your sleep timing later, making you feel alert when you should be winding down. This is called a phase delay. Your entire circadian rhythm shifts later in time. You don't feel sleepy until midnight, 1 in the morning, maybe later. And then, when morning comes and you need to wake up for work or school, you're trying to pull yourself out of sleep at what your body thinks is still the middle of the night. The timing matters enormously. Morning light, especially bright blue-rich light, advances your circadian phase. It pulls your rhythm earlier, helping you wake up earlier and feel sleepy earlier in the evening. This is why getting sunlight first thing in the morning can be so powerful for improving sleep. It's not just about feeling more awake in the moment, it's about setting your clock for the entire day. But evening light, especially in the hours before bedtime, has the opposite effect. It delays your circadian phase, pushing everything later. Stay up watching television, bathed in blue light until 11 or midnight, and you're essentially telling your brain, the day isn't over yet. Keep me awake. Your melatonin release gets delayed, your sleep timing shifts, and the next morning you're fighting against your own biology to get out of bed. This is mistimed light appearing at the wrong time in your circadian cycle. And it's one of the primary drivers of modern sleep problems. We've created an environment where light is available at all hours, where we can illuminate our nights as brightly as our days, where screens glow with blue-rich light right up until the moment we close our eyes. And our circadian systems, designed over millions of years to respond to the natural rise and fall of sunlight, are struggling to adapt. They're receiving conflicting signals. Darkness outside, but brightness inside. Late evening by the clock, but still bright blue light hitting the retinas. The result is a circadian rhythm that's out of sync with the schedule we're trying to keep. Screens at night worsen this disruption significantly, not only because of the blue light they emit, but because of the mental engagement they require. You're not just passively receiving light. You're scrolling, reading, responding, activating your mind in ways that further delay the transition to sleep. The light suppresses melatonin, and the cognitive stimulation keeps your brain active, creating a double barrier to sleep. And here's what's essential to understand. Your sleep isn't controlled by willpower. You can't simply decide to fall asleep and have it happen. Sleep is a biological process, governed by your circadian rhythm and the homeostatic sleep drive, the pressure to sleep that builds up the longer you're awake. Light influences the timing of that process, the opening and closing of the window when sleep is possible. You can be exhausted, desperately wanting to sleep, but if your circadian clock is out of sync, if melatonin hasn't been released because light has suppressed it, sleep will remain elusive. You'll lie awake, frustrated, wondering why you can't just turn off your mind and drift away. But the issue isn't your mind. It's your biology. It's the light you were exposed to hours earlier, still echoing through your circadian system. This is why sleep hygiene recommendations so often focus on light. Dim the lights in the evening, avoid screens before bed, use night mode settings that filter out blue wavelengths. Get bright light in the morning. These aren't arbitrary rules or vague wellness advice. They're about respecting the fundamental biology of your circadian clock, about providing the light signals that allow your body to do what it evolved to do: wake with the sun, sleep with the darkness. Your body wants to sleep. It's designed to sleep, but it needs the right signals, the right timing, the right environment. And light, more than almost anything else, is the signal that sets everything in motion. So when night comes, when the world outside darkens and it's time to rest, your body is waiting for darkness to arrive inside as well. It's waiting for the absence of light, particularly blue light, so it can begin the cascade of events that lead to sleep. The release of melatonin, the lowering of body temperature, the quieting of alertness. And if you can provide that darkness, or at least dim, warm light in the evening hours, you're not just making your bedroom more comfortable. You're speaking the language your circadian clock understands. You're saying, the day is done, night has arrived, and it's safe to let go into sleep. Your body will listen. It's been listening to that signal for as long as humans have existed. All you have to do is let the light fade away. We've been talking about light and sleep, about circadian rhythms and melatonin, about how our bodies respond to the brightness around us. But there's something we need to address, something that makes this story even more complex and, honestly, more important. Not everyone responds to light in the same way, and children, young children especially, are far more sensitive to light than adults are. If you're a parent, or if you've spent time around children at bedtime, you've probably noticed how difficult it can be to get them to settle down in the evening. The burst of energy right before bed, the resistance to sleep, the way they seem almost wired when you're trying to help them wind down. We often chalk this up to stubbornness, to not wanting the day to end, to one more story or one more glass of water. And sure, some of that is just being a kid. But there's biology at work here too, and light plays a much bigger role than most people realize. Research has shown that children's melatonin production is significantly more sensitive to light than adults. Not just a little more sensitive, dramatically so. In studies where children and adults are exposed to the same levels of bright light in the evening, the children's melatonin can be suppressed by up to 99%. Nearly complete suppression. Meanwhile, adults in the same conditions might see their melatonin drop by 50 or 60%. Still significant, but nowhere near as extreme. Think about what this means in practical terms. The same lamp that makes you feel a bit more alert in the evening could be completely shutting down your child's melatonin production. The tablet they're watching before bed, the bright overhead lights in the bathroom during the bedtime routine, even the glow from a nightlight in their room, all of it has an outsized effect on their circadian system. And here's the thing that makes it even more challenging. Once that light is removed, once you finally turn off the lights and tuck them in, their melatonin doesn't immediately rebound. It's not like flipping a switch. The suppression lingers. Their bodies need time to restart the production process, to ramp melatonin levels back up to where they need to be for sleep to occur naturally. So you might think you're doing everything right, dimming the lights at 8:30, getting them into bed by 9. But if they've been exposed to bright light up until that moment, their biology is still in daytime mode. Their circadian clock is still receiving the message, stay awake. And then you're both stuck in that frustrating limbo where they're lying in bed but sleep won't come, and neither of you quite understands why. This heightened sensitivity in children makes sense from a developmental perspective. Young children have larger pupils relative to their eye size, and their lenses are clearer, less yellowed than adult lenses. This means more light reaches their retinas. Those melanopsin cells we talked about, the ones that detect light and signal the circadian clock, they're receiving a stronger signal from the same light source. Evolution didn't prepare children's eyes for electric lighting, for LED screens, for homes that can be as bright at 9 p.m. as they are at 9 a.m. For most of human history, when the sun set, the world dimmed. There might be firelight, sure, warm, orange, flickering light that's low in blue wavelengths and relatively gentle on the circadian system, but nothing like the bright blue-rich light that fills modern homes in the evening. And this is where we find ourselves today, navigating a mismatch between ancient biology and modern technology. It's not anyone's fault. We're not doing anything wrong by turning on lights or letting kids watch educational videos before bed. We're just living in the world we've created, a world that's fundamentally different from the one our circadian systems evolved to handle. Indoor lighting, even regular household lighting, can be strong enough to affect child sleep biology. Overhead lights in living rooms and kitchens, the brightness of bathroom fixtures, the screens that are now ubiquitous in family life, all of it is light, and all of it registers on that circadian clock. For children whose systems are so much more sensitive, the effect is amplified. But here's what's important to understand. This isn't about fear. It's not about throwing away every electronic device or living by candlelight or feeling guilty about modern life. It's about awareness, about understanding how the tools we use every day interact with the biology we carry, about making informed choices when it matters. Small adjustments can make a real difference. Dimming lights in the hour or two before bedtime, using warmer orange-toned bulbs in evening spaces instead of bright white LEDs, keeping screens out of the bedroom, or at least using night mode settings that filter blue light, letting kids spend time outdoors during the day, getting that bright morning and afternoon light that helps anchor their circadian rhythms. None of this requires perfection. Life happens. There will be late-night car rides, sleepovers, special occasions, travel. Circadian systems are resilient. They can handle disruptions. But when those disruptions become the daily norm, when bright evening light is the standard rather than the exception, that's when we see the cumulative effects on sleep patterns, on mood, on behavior. And for children who are still developing, whose brains are forming crucial sleep architecture, whose bodies are learning how to regulate these rhythms, the stakes are a bit higher. Sleep isn't just rest for kids. It's when growth hormone is released. It's when memories consolidate, when learning from the day gets processed and stored. It's foundational to development in ways that we're still discovering. So when their melatonin is suppressed night after night, when their circadian rhythms are constantly being pushed later, it's not just about bedtime battles. It's about giving their bodies what they need to grow, to learn, to be healthy. But again, and this is crucial, this isn't about fear or guilt. It's about empowerment, about recognizing that we have more control over our light environment than we might think. that the choices we make about when and how we use light actually matter, especially for the youngest members of our families. We can honor both the conveniences of modern life and the ancient rhythms of biology. We can use our screens and our electric lights while also respecting the fact that our bodies, particularly children's bodies, are deeply responsive to the timing and intensity of light exposure. It's a balancing act, admittedly, but it's one that becomes easier once you understand what's actually happening. Once you see that the bedtime struggles, the difficulty falling asleep, the groggy mornings, these aren't character flaws or disciplinary issues. They're biological responses to environmental signals, and we can adjust those signals. Dim the lights. Create some separation between screen time and sleep time. Let the evening gradually darken, giving young circadian systems the information they need to shift into nighttime mode. These simple changes acknowledge the reality that children's eyes and brains are exquisitely sensitive instruments, finely tuned to respond to light. And when we work with that sensitivity rather than against it, when we create environments that support their natural rhythms instead of disrupting them, sleep often becomes easier. Not perfect, but easier, more natural. Less of a battle and more of a gentle transition. Because at the end of the day, quite literally, we're not fighting against our children's biology. We're learning to speak its language. And that language, as it turns out, is light and darkness. Simple as that. Ancient as that. And once we understand the conversation, we can participate in it more thoughtfully, more gently, with better outcomes for everyone involved. We've been exploring how light affects sleep, how it synchronizes our internal clocks, how it shapes the rhythms that govern our days and nights. But light's influence reaches even further than that. It reaches into the territory of how we feel, our mood, our mental clarity, our emotional resilience. Or light, it turns out, is one of the most powerful mood-shaping forces we have access to. And understanding this connection opens up possibilities for supporting mental health in ways that are natural, accessible, and profoundly effective. Let's start with the foundation. Daytime bright light stabilizes circadian rhythms. We've talked about this synchronization already, how light in the morning helps reset your internal clock, how it keeps your body aligned with the external world. But stable circadian rhythms do more than just regulate sleep timing. They create a predictable internal environment, a reliable rhythm that your entire body can organize itself around. When your circadian rhythms are stable, when you're waking around the same time each day, sleeping around the same time each night, getting regular exposure to bright light during the day and darkness at night, your body settles into a groove. Hormone production becomes more consistent. Neurotransmitter levels follow predictable patterns. Your mood stabilizes. But when circadian rhythms become irregular or disrupted, when you're sleeping at different times, missing morning light, staying up under artificial brightness until late, everything becomes less predictable. Your body doesn't quite know what's coming next, and research has shown that this circadian instability is closely linked to mood disorders, anxiety, and other mental health challenges. In fact, one of the most consistent patterns researchers have found is that people with depression often have disrupted circadian rhythms. The question has always been, Which comes first? Does depression disrupt sleep and circadian timing, or do disrupted rhythms contribute to depression? The answer seems to be both. It's a bi-directional relationship, a feedback loop where each affects the other. But here's what's encouraging. We can intervene in that loop. We can use light to help stabilize circadian rhythms, and in doing so, support more stable mood. Light also has an immediate alerting effect, not just over days or weeks, but right now, in the moment. Expose yourself to bright light, and within minutes you'll likely feel more awake, more focused, more capable of concentrating. This isn't just subjective. It shows up in reaction times, cognitive performance tests, measures of alertness. And here's something remarkable. Even relatively dim light can have this effect at night. Studies have shown that as little as 40 lux, about the brightness of a dimly lit room, roughly equivalent to twilight, can measurably affect alertness during nighttime hours. That's not very bright at all. It's the kind of light you might not even consciously notice, but your brain notices, your circadian system notices, and your alertness increases in response. This is useful information when you're trying to stay awake, of course. A night shift worker, a student studying late, someone caring for a newborn, they can use light strategically to maintain alertness when they need it. But it also means that if you're trying to wind down for sleep, even modest light levels can work against you, keeping your brain more alert than you want it to be. Now let's talk about seasonal affective disorder, SAD. This is a form of depression that follows a seasonal pattern, typically emerging in fall and winter when days are shorter and sunlight is less available. For some people, the reduction in light exposure during these months isn't just inconvenient, it's devastating. Energy plummets, mood darkens, motivation evaporates, everything feels heavier, harder, grayer. And the primary treatment for seasonal affective disorder? Light, specifically bright light therapy. The protocol is straightforward. Sit in front of a specialized light box, usually producing around 10,000 lux of bright white light for about 20 to 30 minutes each morning. The light needs to be bright enough and the exposure long enough to reach those melanopsin cells, to send a strong signal to the circadian system and the brain regions connected to it. And it works. Not for everyone, and not like flipping a switch, but for many people with SAD, morning bright light therapy produces significant improvements in symptoms. Sometimes within a week or two, the fog begins to lift, energy returns, mood brightens, the world feels more manageable again. Why does this work? The mechanisms are still being researched, but several factors seem to be at play. First, bright light stabilizes circadian rhythms, which, as we've discussed, supports mood stability. Second, light exposure may boost the activity of serotonin, one of the key neurotransmitters involved in mood regulation. When light hits your retina and the signal travels to your brain, it doesn't just affect the circadian clock, it influences other systems as well, including those that produce and regulate serotonin. Serotonin is often called the feel-good neurotransmitter, and while that's an oversimplification, it does play a crucial role in mood, anxiety, and overall emotional well-being. Many antidepressant medications work by increasing serotonin availability in the brain. And bright light, particularly in the morning, seems to have a similar effect through entirely natural means. But here's something even more intriguing. Bright light therapy doesn't just help seasonal depression. Research has shown that it can also be effective for non-seasonal depression, regular major depressive disorder that doesn't follow a seasonal pattern. The effect sizes are often comparable to antidepressant medications, and in some cases, light therapy has been used successfully as an adjunct treatment, meaning it's added alongside medication. In fact, studies have found that when bright light therapy is combined with antidepressant medication, people often respond faster and more completely than with medication alone. The light seems to amplify the medication's effects, helping people feel better sooner. This makes light therapy one of the most powerful antidepressants we have, not in the pharmaceutical sense, but in the broader sense of interventions that alleviate depression. And unlike medications, bright light has virtually no side effects when used appropriately. No weight gain, no sexual dysfunction, no need for prescriptions or blood tests, just light. The same light that's been synchronizing circadian systems and influencing mood for as long as animals have had eyes. There's something profound in that, isn't there? That one of the most effective treatments for certain types of depression is simply brightness, exposure to light at the right time, in the right amount. It's not mystical or complicated. It's just biology responding to its most fundamental environmental signal. Of course, bright light therapy isn't a cure-all. Depression is complex, multifaceted, influenced by genetics, life circumstances, trauma, brain chemistry, and countless other factors. Light won't fix everything. But for many people, it's a piece of the puzzle that makes a real difference. A tool that's been there all along, waiting to be used more intentionally. And even for people who don't struggle with depression, understanding light's effect on mood and alertness is valuable. Those mornings when you feel sluggish and can't quite shake the grogginess, getting outside into bright daylight for even 10 or 15 minutes can make a tangible difference. That afternoon slump where concentration becomes impossible, a brief exposure to bright light can help restore focus. We often reach for coffee, for stimulants, for ways to push through, and those have their place. But light is another lever we can pull, one that works with our biology rather than overriding it. It's not about forcing alertness when your body desperately needs rest. It's about using light to support the natural rhythms that keep you functioning well. The relationship between light and mental health is still being explored, still yielding new insights. Researchers are investigating optimal timing, intensity, duration. They're exploring how light therapy might help with bipolar disorder, with anxiety, with PTSD. The field is young, but the early results are promising. What we know for certain is this: light matters. Not just for seeing, not just for sleep, but for the emotional and cognitive well-being that allows us to move through our days with clarity and resilience. It's a foundational input, as essential to mental health as nutrition or sleep or social connection. And perhaps the most encouraging part is how accessible it is. You don't need expensive equipment or complicated protocols. Step outside in the morning, spend time near windows during the day, seek brightness when you need it. These simple acts are forms of self-care, ways of supporting your brain's natural capacity for balance and well-being. Light is a gift we've had since the beginning, and the more we understand how to receive that gift, how to time it, how to dose it, how to let it work its quiet magic on our neurobiology, the better equipped we are to navigate the inevitable challenges of being human. So when the days feel dark, when mood dips and energy wanes, Remember, sometimes the answer isn't complicated. Sometimes it's just light, bright, beautiful, mood-lifting light. We've been building a picture of light's influence, how it affects sleep, mood, alertness, the very rhythms that structure our days. But there's a broader canvas we need to see. Because light doesn't just affect your brain and your sleep, it affects your entire body, right down to your metabolism, your hormones, the way your cells process energy. Everything is connected, and light is the thread that ties it all together. Let's start with cortisol, often called the stress hormone, though that label doesn't quite capture its full role. Cortisol does spike during stress, yes, but it's also essential for normal daily function. It helps mobilize energy, supports immune function, keeps inflammation in check. And importantly, cortisol follows a strong circadian pattern. In a well-synchronized system, cortisol peaks in the early morning, right around the time you wake up. This morning cortisol surge is sometimes called the cortisol awakening response, and it's actually helpful. It gives you energy to start the day, helps you feel alert and ready to engage. Throughout the day, cortisol gradually declines, reaching its lowest levels at night when you're sleeping. And what drives this pattern? Light. Morning light exposure helps trigger that cortisol rise, signaling to your body that it's time to be active. The absence of light at night allows cortisol to drop, creating the hormonal environment conducive to rest and recovery. But when light exposure becomes mistimed, when you're getting bright light late at night or missing morning light, this cortisol rhythm can flatten or shift. You might not get that energizing morning peak, leaving you feeling sluggish, or cortisol might remain elevated into the evening, contributing to that tired but wired feeling where you're exhausted but somehow can't settle down. And cortisol is just one hormone in a vast orchestra. Your body produces dozens of hormones that follow circadian patterns, all of them coordinating with each other, all of them influenced by light. Here's something fascinating. Evening light doesn't just affect sleep. It alters your energy metabolism during sleep. Research has shown that when people are exposed to bright light in the hours before bed, their bodies process energy differently throughout the night. Fat oxidation decreases. Glucose metabolism shifts. The body seems to interpret that late light exposure as a signal that food might still be coming, that the active period of the day isn't truly over yet. In animal studies, the effects are even more dramatic. When mice are kept in constant light, never experiencing true darkness, their metabolic rhythms flatten. Instead of having clear peaks and valleys in metabolism throughout the day, everything becomes more constant, more monotonous. And consistently, these animals gain weight even when food intake is controlled. The disrupted light patterns alone, independent of diet, contribute to weight gain and metabolic dysfunction. Now, humans aren't mice, obviously, but the underlying biology is remarkably similar. We have the same basic circadian machinery, the same light-responsive systems, and we're seeing parallel effects in human research. People who experience chronic circadian disruption, shift workers, people with irregular sleep schedules, those exposed to significant light at night, show higher rates of metabolic syndrome, weight gain, and type 2 diabetes. Part of this comes down to body temperature. Your core body temperature isn't constant. It follows a circadian rhythm, rising during the day and falling at night. This temperature rhythm is actually crucial for proper sleep. You fall asleep as your temperature drops and wake as it rises, and light exposure influences this pattern. Bright light during the day helps maintain the amplitude of this rhythm, keeping the highs higher and the lows lower. But light at the wrong time can dampen or shift this rhythm, affecting not just sleep, but the metabolic processes that depend on these temperature changes. Then there's insulin sensitivity, how effectively your cells respond to insulin and take up glucose from the bloodstream. This too follows a circadian pattern. You're generally more insulin sensitive in the morning and less sensitive in the evening. This makes biological sense. You need energy during the active part of your day, so your body is primed to efficiently process the food you eat. But when circadian rhythms are disrupted by mistimed light exposure, insulin sensitivity can become impaired. You might eat the same meal in the evening that you ate in the morning, but your body processes it less efficiently, leading to higher blood sugar levels. Over time, this can contribute to insulin resistance, a precursor to diabetes. Everything, metabolism, hormone release, temperature regulation, insulin sensitivity, is choreographed to the rhythm of light and dark. When that rhythm is clear and consistent, the whole system works beautifully. When it's disrupted, the consequences ripple through every aspect of your physiology. Growth hormone is another powerful example. This hormone, crucial for tissue repair, muscle growth, and overall recovery, is released primarily during deep sleep. In fact, the majority of your daily growth hormone secretion happens in the first few hours after you fall asleep, particularly during slow-wave sleep. And this release follows circadian timing. It's not just about being asleep, it's about being asleep at the right time in your circadian cycle. When your sleep-wake patterns are aligned with your internal clock, growth hormone release is robust and appropriately timed. But when light exposure disrupts your circadian rhythms, when your sleep is shifted or fragmented, growth hormone patterns change. Release might be reduced or mistimed, affecting recovery, muscle maintenance, metabolic health. For children and adolescents who are still growing, this is especially important. Growth hormone is, after all, what drives physical growth. Disrupted sleep and circadian patterns during these developmental years can potentially affect growth trajectories, though the full extent of these effects is still being studied. But even in adults, growth hormone matters. It supports tissue repair, helps maintain lean muscle mass, influences metabolism. It's part of why sleep is so restorative, not just because you're resting, but because critical repair and maintenance processes are occurring, orchestrated by hormones that only do their work properly when the circadian system is functioning well. So here's the big picture. Light doesn't just affect one thing. It's not just about sleep, or just about mood, or just about metabolism. It's all of these things simultaneously, because they're all part of the same integrated system. Your circadian clock, synchronized by light, coordinates everything: sleep, hormones, body temperature, metabolism, immune function. They all dance to the same rhythm. And when that rhythm is disrupted, when light comes at the wrong times or darkness never truly arrives, the disruption spreads. Weight gain becomes more likely, metabolic health suffers, hormonal balance tips, insulin sensitivity declines, recovery processes don't function optimally. This is why shift workers who are exposed to light at night and often sleep during the day face such significant health challenges. It's not just that they're tired or that their jobs are stressful. It's that their entire physiology is being asked to operate against its natural rhythm, and every system from metabolism to immune function to cardiovascular health pays a price. But here's the empowering part. We have some control over this. We can't always control our schedules or eliminate all sources of mistimed light, but we can make choices that support circadian alignment, seeking bright light in the morning, dimming lights in the evening, keeping consistent sleep schedules when possible, eating meals at regular times, ideally earlier in the day when insulin sensitivity is higher. These aren't just sleep hygiene tips. They're metabolic health strategies, hormonal optimization techniques, ways of working with your body's deep rhythms rather than against them. Your body wants to maintain these patterns. It evolved to function this way with clear signals about when it's day and when it's night, when to be active and when to rest, when to eat and when to fast. When we provide those signals clearly and consistently, the whole system hums along more smoothly. But in the modern world, those signals are often muddled. We can be active at any hour. We can eat at midnight. We can flood our retinas with bright light at 10 p.m. And our bodies do their best to adapt, but there are limits. There are costs. Understanding that light is the primary signal coordinating all of this, that's the key insight. Light is the conductor of this metabolic and hormonal orchestra. And when the conductor is giving clear, consistent cues, the performance is beautiful. But when the cues are chaotic or contradictory, even the best musicians struggle to stay in sync. So as you rest here tonight, in whatever lighting you've chosen, remember, you're not just preparing for sleep. You're setting the stage for how your entire body will function tomorrow, the hormones that will be released, the metabolism that will process your food, the repair processes that will restore your tissues. Light matters, not as a separate concern, but as the foundation that everything else is built upon. Take care of your light exposure, and in a very real sense, you're taking care of your whole body. We've talked about how light affects your brain, your hormones, your metabolism, but light's reach extends even further, into systems you might never associate with illumination at all. Your cardiovascular system, your heart, your blood vessels, the rhythm of your pulse, responds to light in ways that are subtle but measurable, quiet but significant. Light, it turns out, doesn't just influence whether you feel awake or sleepy. It influences whether your body is in a state of activation or calm. And that state is written in the beating of your heart. Bright light can raise your heart rate. Not dramatically, you're not talking about the spike you'd get from exercise or fear, but measurably. Expose someone to bright light, especially if they're in a relatively dim environment beforehand, and within minutes their heart rate ticks upward, a few beats per minute perhaps, but enough to show that something has changed physiologically. This makes sense when you think about it from an evolutionary perspective. Bright light signals daytime, and daytime is when you need to be active, alert, ready to move. Your cardiovascular system is preparing to support that activity. Blood flow increases slightly. Heart rate rises to match the anticipated demands of an active body. It's your system gearing up, even if you're just sitting still. But what about light at the wrong time? What happens when your cardiovascular system receives these activation signals at night when it should be winding down? Late night light increases sympathetic nervous system activity. The sympathetic nervous system is your fight or flight system, the part of your autonomic nervous system responsible for arousal, activation, stress responses. When it's active, your heart beats faster, your blood pressure rises, your body is primed for action. During the day, appropriate levels of sympathetic activity are healthy and necessary. But at night, your body is supposed to shift into parasympathetic dominance, the rest and digest mode where your heart rate slows, blood pressure drops, and your body focuses on recovery and repair. Light at night disrupts this natural shift. It keeps sympathetic activity elevated when it should be declining. And research has shown that people who sleep with room light on, even relatively dim room light, maintain a higher heart rate throughout the night compared to those sleeping in darkness. Think about what that means. Your heart is supposed to rest at night, to beat more slowly, to work less hard. 8 hours of lower heart rate, lower blood pressure, reduced cardiovascular strain. That's part of why sleep is restorative, not just for your brain, but for your heart. But when light keeps sympathetic activity elevated, your heart doesn't get that full reprieve. It keeps working harder than it should. Over a single night, the difference might be negligible. But night after night, year after year, the cumulative effect on cardiovascular health becomes a concern. Studies have found associations between sleeping with light exposure and increased risk of cardiovascular disease, hypertension, and metabolic problems. Now, these are correlational studies, so we can't say definitively that the light causes these problems. There could be other factors involved. But the physiological mechanism is there. Light keeps your heart rate higher, maintains sympathetic activation, prevents the deep cardiovascular rest that darkness allows. And it's not just the presence of light that matters, it's the quality of that light as well. Flickering light, the kind produced by some older fluorescent bulbs or poorly regulated LED lights, raises heart rate more than steady light of the same average brightness. Your nervous system is constantly processing that flicker, even when you're not consciously aware of it, and that processing creates a subtle stress response. You might walk into a room with flickering overhead lights and simply feel vaguely uncomfortable, maybe a little on edge, without quite knowing why. Part of that discomfort is your cardiovascular system responding to the instability of the light source. Your heart rate inches up, your nervous system stays slightly more activated. Then there's the color of light itself, which seems to have specific effects on blood pressure. Red light, interestingly, may raise blood pressure slightly. The mechanisms aren't entirely clear yet, but it might relate to how red light affects vascular tone, the degree of constriction or dilation in your blood vessels. Blue light, on the other hand, appears to have a different effect. Some research suggests it may slightly lower systolic blood pressure, the top number in a blood pressure reading, which reflects the pressure in your arteries when your heart beats. Again, the effects are modest, not the kind of thing that would replace blood pressure medication, but enough to show that your cardiovascular system is responding specifically to wavelength, not just to brightness. This reveals something important. Light is not just a generic stimulus. Your body discriminates. It responds differently to red versus blue, to flickering versus steady, to bright versus dim, to timed versus mistimed. Every quality of light carries information, and your physiology is listening, interpreting, responding. And all of this happens quietly, beneath conscious awareness. You don't feel your sympathetic nervous system activating in response to late-night light. You don't notice the subtle elevation in heart rate when you sleep with a lamp on, but your body notices. Your cardiovascular system is keeping score, adapting moment by moment to the light environment around you. For most people, for most of history, this was fine. Light meant day, and day meant activity, and your heart responded appropriately. Darkness meant night, and night meant rest, and your cardiovascular system could relax. The signals were clear, consistent, predictable. But now we have the ability to create any light condition at any time. We can make midnight as bright as noon. We can fill our bedrooms with gentle ambient light that seems harmless, even comforting. And our hearts, still responding to ancient programming, don't quite know what to make of it. They're receiving mixed signals. Be active from the light. Rest from the time of day and your conscious intention to sleep. And so they compromise, maintaining a level of activity higher than true rest, but lower than full wakefulness. Not quite one thing or the other. Over time, this chronic low-level activation can take a toll. Cardiovascular health depends on cycles, periods of activity followed by periods of rest, of challenge followed by recovery. When those cycles become blurred, when rest never quite feels like rest because your heart rate stays elevated, the balance tips. This isn't meant to alarm you. For most people, occasional exposure to light at night isn't going to cause immediate cardiovascular problems. Your body is resilient. It can handle occasional disruptions, inconsistencies, less than ideal conditions. But chronic exposure is different. Sleeping with lights on every night, working night shifts under bright lighting, constantly exposing yourself to screens right up until sleep. These patterns, sustained over months and years, create a chronic stressor that your cardiovascular system has to continually adapt to. The good news is that this is modifiable. Unlike many cardiovascular risk factors, genetics, age, past health history, your light environment is something you can change. Sleeping in darkness or very dim light gives your heart permission to truly rest. Avoiding bright light in the hours before sleep allows sympathetic activity to naturally decline. Seeking stable, non-flickering light sources during the day reduces unnecessary nervous system activation. These are small interventions with potentially significant long-term effects. You're not just improving your sleep, you're giving your cardiovascular system what it needs to maintain health. Clear signals, appropriate rest, and the natural rhythms that millions of years of evolution have attuned it to. Your heart wants to rest at night. It wants to slow down, to beat more gently, to recover from the work of the day. All you have to do is let the lights go down, let the darkness arrive, and allow your body to do what it knows how to do. In that darkness, your heart rate slows, your blood pressure drops, sympathetic activity decreases, and your cardiovascular system finally, fully rests. It's one of the quietest gifts you can give yourself. Not dramatic, not immediate, but profound over time. A gift measured in heartbeats, in blood pressure readings, in the long-term health of the system that keeps you alive, beat after beat after beat. So tonight, as you prepare for sleep, consider, what signal are you sending to your heart? Activity or rest? Daytime or nighttime? The choice, quite literally, is in your hands, or rather, in your light switch. We've been exploring light as it enters through your eyes, affecting sleep, mood, metabolism, even your heartbeat. But there's another pathway we haven't fully addressed yet. Light also touches your skin directly, and through that contact, it becomes both medicine and risk, benefit and hazard, essential and dangerous, all at once. The story of sunlight and skin is a story of balance, and like so many things in biology, it's complicated. Let's start with the good, the part that's truly remarkable. Your skin has the ability to manufacture a crucial nutrient, vitamin D, using nothing but sunlight and a cholesterol precursor that's naturally present in your skin cells. When ultraviolet B radiation, UVB, the shorter, more energetic wavelengths around 290 to 300 nanometers, strikes your skin, it triggers a chemical transformation. A form of cholesterol called 7-dehydrocholesterol absorbs the UVB photons and converts into pre-vitamin D3, which then transforms into vitamin D3 over the course of hours. It's elegant, really. Your body taking light energy and turning it into a molecule that's essential for health. No food required, no supplements needed, just skin and sunlight working together the way they have for millions of years. And vitamin D is far from trivial. It's crucial for bone health, helping your body absorb calcium and maintain the mineral density that keeps your skeleton strong. Without adequate vitamin D, bones can become brittle, weak, prone to fractures. Children with severe deficiency develop rickets. Adults develop osteomalacia. The skeleton, quite literally, softens. But vitamin D's role extends well beyond bones. It's involved in immune function, helping regulate the cells that fight infection and potentially reducing the risk of autoimmune diseases. It may play a role in cardiovascular health, in muscle function, even in mood regulation. Vitamin D receptors exist throughout the body, in tissues you wouldn't immediately associate with a vitamin: brain, heart, immune cells. So sunlight, through this vitamin D pathway, is genuinely therapeutic. It's medicine. For most of human history, this was how people got their vitamin D, through sun exposure. Our ancestors lived outdoors, their skin regularly bathed in sunlight, converting UVB into this essential nutrient day after day. But here's where the story gets complicated, because the same ultraviolet radiation that produces vitamin D also damages DNA. UV radiation carries enough energy to break chemical bonds. When it penetrates skin cells and reaches the DNA inside, it can cause mutations, errors in the genetic code that cells use to function and replicate. Most of the time, your cells detect and repair this damage. You have elaborate DNA repair mechanisms that patrol constantly, fixing errors, maintaining genetic integrity. But sometimes the damage is too extensive, or the repair systems miss something, or mutations accumulate over years of exposure. And when DNA damage goes unrepaired, it can lead to cancer. Specifically, skin cancer, basal cell carcinoma, squamous cell carcinoma, and the more dangerous melanoma. UV radiation is a known carcinogen. The evidence is unequivocal. Excessive sun exposure, especially exposure that causes sunburn, significantly increases skin cancer risk. People who experience multiple severe sunburns in childhood have higher melanoma rates later in life. Those who use tanning beds, which emit concentrated UV radiation, face elevated cancer risk as well. And beyond cancer, UV radiation contributes to photoaging, the premature aging of skin caused by sun exposure, wrinkles, age spots, loss of elasticity, the leathery texture that can develop on chronically sun-exposed skin. This happens because UV breaks down collagen and elastin, the structural proteins that keep skin firm and resilient. Over decades, the cumulative damage becomes visible as aging. So we have this paradox. The same wavelengths that produce an essential vitamin also damage DNA and age skin. The same sunlight that supports bone health and immune function also increases cancer risk. And here's another layer. It's not just UV that affects skin aging. Blue-violet visible light, wavelengths just beyond UV, around 400 to 450 nanometers, can also contribute to photoaging. These wavelengths don't have enough energy to directly damage DNA the way UV does, but they can generate reactive oxygen species in skin cells, molecules that cause oxidative stress and inflammation. This blue-violet light penetrates deeper into the skin than UV, potentially affecting the dermis where collagen and elastin reside. And because it's visible light, it's not blocked by most sunscreens, which are formulated primarily to filter UV radiation. So even when you're protected from UV, blue light from the sun or from screens or from indoor lighting may still be contributing to skin aging, though to a much lesser degree than UV. The question then becomes one of balance. How do you get the benefits of sun exposure without incurring excessive risk? The answer isn't to avoid sunlight entirely. Some sun exposure is beneficial, even necessary for most people. But it's about moderation, timing, and protection. Brief exposures, 10 to 30 minutes depending on skin tone, time of year, and latitude, are often enough to produce adequate vitamin D without causing significant DNA damage. Skin tone matters because melanin, the pigment that gives skin its color, absorbs UV radiation and provides natural protection. People with darker skin need more sun exposure to produce the same amount of vitamin D as those with lighter skin, but they also have more built-in protection against UV damage. Time of day matters too. UVB intensity is highest when the sun is directly overhead, typically between 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. That's when vitamin D production is most efficient, but it's also when the risk of burning is greatest. Some experts suggest brief midday exposure for vitamin D synthesis, while others recommend morning or late afternoon sun, when UV intensity is lower but exposure can be longer without burning. And for extended sun exposure, hours at the beach, a long hike, outdoor work, protection becomes essential. Sunscreen, protective clothing, hats, shade. These measures reduce UV exposure and, with it, the risk of damage. The goal isn't to eliminate all UV, but to prevent the excessive exposure that leads to sunburn, DNA damage accumulation, and elevated cancer risk. It's also worth noting that vitamin D can be obtained through diet and supplements, fatty fish, fortified dairy products, vitamin D pills. So if someone lives in a region with limited sunlight, has skin that burns easily, has a history of skin cancer, or simply prefers to minimize sun exposure, they're not locked out of adequate vitamin D status. Supplementation can fill that gap. But there's something about sunlight that supplements don't replicate. The full spectrum of wavelengths, the warmth on your skin, the psychological boost of being outdoors, the way natural light synchronizes your circadian rhythms. Sunlight is more than just a vitamin D delivery system. It's a complex sensory experience with multiple biological effects, many of which we've been discussing throughout this journey. So the wisdom, if there is any to be found, lies in nuance. Sunlight is neither purely good nor purely bad. It's both. It's essential and dangerous. It heals and it harms. And navigating that duality requires awareness, intention, and respect for both the power of sunlight and the vulnerability of your skin. Brief, regular sun exposure, enough to support vitamin D production, but not enough to burn, seems to be the sweet spot for many people. Longer exposures require protection, and individual factors, skin type, family history, geographic location, lifestyle, all influence what the right balance looks like for you. Your skin remembers every sunburn, every excessive exposure. DNA damage accumulates silently over years. But your skin also has remarkable resilience, sophisticated repair mechanisms, the ability to heal and regenerate. Treat it with care. Give it what it needs without overwhelming it, and it will serve you well for decades. Sunlight on your skin is one of the oldest relationships in biology. Photosynthetic organisms harnessed light billions of years ago. Animals evolved to use light for vision, for circadian timing, and yes, for vitamin D synthesis. We're part of that ancient lineage, still negotiating the same fundamental exchange, energy from the sun, transformed into biological function. But we're also the first generation with the knowledge to understand both sides of that exchange, the benefits and the risks, and the technology to modulate our exposure. That's a privilege and a responsibility. So as you think about your relationship with sunlight, remember, it's not about fear or avoidance, it's about wisdom, about taking what you need, protecting what's vulnerable, and finding the balance that allows you to live under the same sun that's nourished life on this planet for billions of years. A little light on your skin, it's medicine. Too much, it's damage. The difference is in the dose, the duration, and the care you take in between. We've been building this picture of light's influence on sleep, on mood, on metabolism, on the heart, on skin. And with each layer, the reach of light becomes more apparent, more pervasive. But there's another system we need to talk about, one that might seem even more distant from illumination, your immune system. The collection of cells, tissues, and organs that defend you against infection, that patrol for threats, that distinguish self from foreign, that keep you healthy in a world full of pathogens. This system, too, responds to light. An understanding that connection reveals just how deeply light is woven into the fabric of your biology. Let's start with something specific. Blue light increases T-cell movement. T-cells are a type of white blood cell, crucial for adaptive immunity, the targeted, learned immune response that remembers past infections and attacks specific threats. These cells need to move through your body, traveling from lymph nodes to blood vessels to tissues, seeking out infected cells or coordinating with other immune cells. And research has shown that blue light exposure makes T cells move faster. The cells become more modal, more active in their surveillance. The mechanism involves light-sensitive proteins within the T cells themselves. Yes, your immune cells contain photoreceptors, not for vision, but for responding to light that reaches them. How does light reach immune cells circulating in your blood? Through your skin. While your skin blocks most UV radiation, visible light, especially blue wavelengths, can penetrate into the dermis where small blood vessels reside. The light passes through the vessel walls and affects the immune cells flowing within. This might be part of why sunlight exposure has immunomodulatory effects, why it changes immune function in ways that can be both beneficial and, in some contexts, suppressive. UV radiation, for instance, is known to suppress certain immune responses in the skin. This is actually used therapeutically in some skin conditions like psoriasis, where the immune system is overactive and causing inflammation. Controlled UV exposure can calm that overactivity. But suppression isn't always good. If your skin's immune defenses are dampened too much, you become more vulnerable to skin infections or less able to detect and eliminate precancerous cells. Once again, we're back to balance. The dose, the context, the individual circumstances all matter. Visible light beyond just blue appears to alter immune cell activity more broadly. Different wavelengths seem to have different effects, some stimulating, some suppressing, some modulating the balance between different types of immune responses. The field is still young, still mapping out which wavelengths do what, which cell types are most responsive, what the implications are for health and disease. But what's clear is that sunlight affects circulating immune cells. When you step outside into bright daylight, you're not just exposing your eyes and skin, you're influencing immune cells throughout your body. The light that penetrates your skin is communicating with those cells, potentially altering their function, their movement, their responsiveness. And then there's the indirect pathway we've discussed before, circadian rhythms. Your immune system, like nearly every other system in your body, follows circadian patterns. The production of immune cells fluctuates throughout the day. Inflammatory signaling peaks at certain times and drops at others. Your body's readiness to fight infection varies depending on where you are in your circadian cycle. This makes evolutionary sense. Throughout human history, the risk of infection varied by time of day. Wounds were more likely during the active daylight hours, when people were hunting, gathering, working. So the immune system evolved to be more vigilant, more ready to respond during those times. At night, when risk was lower, immune resources could be allocated differently, toward repair, memory consolidation, maintenance. But this circadian coordination depends on stable, predictable rhythms, and those rhythms depend on appropriate light exposure, bright light during the day, darkness at night. When circadian rhythms become disrupted by shift work, irregular sleep schedules, light at night, immune function can be compromised. Studies have shown that circadian disruption weakens immunity. People with chronic circadian misalignment, like long-term shift workers, show altered immune profiles. They may have reduced vaccine responses, meaning their bodies don't generate as strong or lasting an immune memory when vaccinated. They're at higher risk for infections. Inflammatory markers in their blood often show dysregulation, with inflammation inappropriately elevated at some times and suppressed at others. And light at night appears to be a key culprit. Research has demonstrated that light exposure during typical sleep hours alters inflammatory signaling. Pro-inflammatory cytokines, molecules that promote inflammation, can become elevated. The balance between different types of immune responses shifts. The immune system, like the cardiovascular system we discussed earlier, doesn't get its proper rest period. It's time to recalibrate and reset. Inflammation is a critical part of immune function. When you're fighting an infection or healing an injury, inflammation brings immune cells to the site, clears damaged tissue, and initiates repair. But chronic low-grade inflammation that persists when there's no acute threat, is implicated in numerous health problems. Cardiovascular disease, diabetes, autoimmune conditions, even depression and cognitive decline all show associations with chronic inflammation. And circadian disruption, driven in large part by mistimed light exposure, appears to contribute to this problematic chronic inflammation. Your immune system, like a soldier who never gets leave, never gets to stand down, remains in a state of partial activation, not fully responding to threats when needed, but not fully resting either. There's something tragic about that, isn't there? The system designed to protect you, to keep you healthy, becomes itself a source of dysfunction when its natural rhythms are disrupted. And the disruptor is something as simple as light appearing at the wrong time. But again, understanding this gives you agency. If light exposure shapes immune function, both directly through effects on immune cells and indirectly through circadian rhythms, then managing your light environment becomes a form of immune support. Getting sunlight during the day, actually going outside, not just sitting near a window, exposes your skin to the full spectrum of natural light, potentially benefiting immune cell function through those direct pathways we discussed. It also strengthens circadian rhythms, which in turn supports appropriate immune coordination. Protecting nighttime darkness preserves the circadian patterns that allow your immune system to function optimally. It ensures that inflammatory signaling follows its natural ebb and flow rather than becoming persistently elevated. It gives your immune system permission to rest, to consolidate, to prepare for the next day's challenges. And this might be part of why sleep is so crucial when you're fighting an infection. You've probably noticed that when you're sick, all you want to do is sleep. That's not weakness or laziness. It's your body redirecting resources toward immune function. During sleep, especially when your circadian rhythms are properly aligned, immune activity ramps up in specific ways. Certain immune cells proliferate more. Antibody production increases. The communication between different parts of your immune system becomes more efficient. But if your sleep is happening at the wrong circadian time, or if light exposure is disrupting your circadian coordination, those sleep-dependent immune benefits might be diminished. You're still sleeping, but the sleep isn't as immunologically productive as it could be. So light's effect on immunity operates at multiple levels simultaneously. Direct effects on immune cells in your blood and tissues, indirect effects through circadian coordination, influences on sleep quality and timing, which in turn affect immune function. It's a web of connections, each reinforcing the others, all ultimately tied back to the fundamental biological signal that is light. And this might help explain why people who spend more time outdoors, who get regular sunlight exposure, who maintain consistent sleep-wake schedules, often have better health outcomes. It's not just one thing, not just vitamin D, not just better sleep, not just mood improvements. It's the whole integrated system functioning more coherently, with light serving as the synchronizing signal that allows everything to work together. Your immune system is constantly protecting you. Right now, as you rest, immune cells are circulating through your bloodstream, patrolling your tissues, surveilling for threats. Some are remembering past infections, maintaining the molecular memory that allows you to resist diseases you've encountered before. Others are ready to respond immediately if something goes wrong. And all of this activity, all of this vigilance, is influenced by light. By the light that reached your eyes this morning and reset your circadian clock. By the sunlight that touched your skin earlier and penetrated to the blood vessels beneath. By the absence of light tonight that's allowing your immune system to follow its natural rhythm, to be most effective in its protection. You can't see your immune system working. You don't feel T cells moving through your lymph nodes or cytokines signaling between tissues. It all happens silently, automatically, continuously. But it's happening. And light, that simple, pervasive, ancient signal, is part of what guides it. So, when you think about light and health, remember, it's not just about seeing clearly or sleeping well. It's about supporting every system in your body, including the one that keeps you alive in the face of constant microscopic threats. Your immune system is listening to light, just like everything else. And when you give it the right signals, bright days and dark nights, consistent rhythms and appropriate timing, it can do its job more effectively. That's not mystical. It's not speculative. It's biology, revealed through careful research, becoming clearer with each passing year. Light shapes how well you fight disease. And knowing that, you can shape your light exposure to give your immune system what it needs. Brightness when it's time to be active. Darkness when it's time to rest. And a body that, in response, maintains the vigilance that keeps you healthy, day after day, season after season, year after year. We've been talking about light's influence on your cells, your organs, your systems, sleep, metabolism, immunity, all of it. But there's another dimension to this story that's only recently come into focus. You are not just you. You are also an ecosystem, home to trillions of microorganisms that live on your skin, in your gut, in your mouth, throughout your body. These microscopic inhabitants, bacteria, fungi, viruses, form what we call the microbiome. And remarkably, light influences this ecosystem too. Light doesn't just affect your human cells. It reshapes the microbial communities that call your body home. Let's start with the most direct connection, the skin microbiome. Your skin is covered with bacteria, hundreds of different species, forming complex communities that vary depending on where you are on your body. Oily areas like your forehead have different bacterial populations than dry areas like your forearm. Warm, moist places like your armpits host different species than exposed, dry surfaces. And these bacteria aren't just passengers. They're active participants in your skin's health. They help maintain the skin barrier, produce antimicrobial compounds that protect against pathogens, train your immune system, even influence wound healing. A healthy, balanced skin microbiome is part of what keeps your skin functioning properly. Now, when UV radiation from sunlight strikes your skin, it doesn't just affect your human skin cells, it also affects the bacteria living on the surface. UV radiation is antimicrobial. That's why it's used for sterilization, why sunlight can disinfect water, why UV lamps are used in hospitals to kill pathogens. The same energy that damages DNA in your cells damages DNA in bacterial cells. So UV exposure alters the composition of your skin microbiome. Some bacterial species are more resistant to UV than others. Those that can tolerate or repair UV damage survive and potentially thrive, while more sensitive species decline. The result is a shift in the bacterial balance. Sunlight quite literally selects for certain microbes over others. Studies have shown that regular sun exposure changes the diversity and composition of skin bacterial communities. The specific changes vary depending on the individual, their baseline microbiome, the intensity and duration of exposure. But the pattern is clear. Sunlight reshapes the microbial ecosystem living on your skin. Is this good or bad? As with so much involving light, it's complicated. On one hand, if UV exposure reduces harmful bacteria or prevents overgrowth of problematic species, that could be beneficial. On the other hand, if it disrupts beneficial bacterial communities or reduces overall diversity, and diversity is generally associated with a healthy microbiome, that could be detrimental. The research is still unfolding, still trying to map out which specific bacterial changes occur and what the implications are for skin health. But what's clear is that this is happening. Your microbial residents are responding to the same sunlight you are, and the ecosystem on your skin is different because of it. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. UVB exposure appears to change the gut microbiome as well. Not the skin microbiome, the gut microbiome. The bacterial communities living in your intestines feed away from where the sunlight actually touched your body. How is this possible? How does light on your skin affect bacteria in your gut? The connection appears to involve some of the pathways we've already discussed. When UVB strikes your skin and produces vitamin D, that vitamin D enters your bloodstream and travels throughout your body, including to your gut. Vitamin D influences immune function in the gut lining, and immune function in turn shapes which bacteria can thrive and which are suppressed. So, UV exposure, vitamin D production, altered gut immunity, shifted gut microbiome. But there may be other pathways as well. UV exposure affects circadian rhythms, and circadian rhythms influence gut function, motility, secretions, immune surveillance, all of which affect the bacterial environment. UV also affects systemic immune signaling, and those immune signals reach the gut, where they influence the relationship between your immune system and your gut bacteria. Studies in animals have shown that UVB exposure increases gut microbiome diversity, generally a positive sign, and alters the specific composition of bacterial species present. And some of these changes appear to have functional consequences. In mouse models, UV exposure has been shown to influence susceptibility to certain inflammatory bowel conditions, potentially mediated through microbiome changes. In humans, the research is still early, but preliminary studies suggest similar patterns. People with greater sun exposure show different gut microbiome profiles than those with minimal sun exposure, even when controlling for other factors like diet and geography. This is profound when you think about it. Light touching your skin is reshaping microbial ecosystems inside your body, in places that never see light directly. It's a cascade of effects. Light to skin cells, to vitamin D production, to immune modulation, to microbial communities, to metabolic outputs from those bacteria, and on, Your gut microbiome isn't just a passive collection of bacteria. It's metabolically active, producing compounds that enter your bloodstream and influence your health. Short-chain fatty acids that feed the cells lining your gut. Neurotransmitter precursors that may affect brain function. Immune modulators that shape inflammatory responses. The specific composition of your gut microbiome, which species are present and in what proportions, affects all of these outputs. And if light exposure, through its various pathways, influences microbiome composition, then light indirectly influences these metabolic outputs as well. It's yet another layer of connection between light and whole body health. There's also emerging research on circadian rhythms within the microbiome itself. It turns out that bacterial communities in your gut follow daily rhythms. Their composition and activity fluctuates over the course of 24 hours. And these microbial circadian rhythms appear to be entrained, at least partially, by your circadian rhythms, which are, of course, synchronized by light. So light sets your circadian clock. Your circadian clock influences gut function and immune signaling, and those signals in turn synchronize daily rhythms in your gut bacteria. The light you see in the morning ripples all the way down to the daily activity patterns of bacteria living in your intestines. It's an almost dizzying level of interconnection. And when circadian rhythms are disrupted by shift work, irregular schedules, mistimed light exposure, microbial rhythms become disrupted as well. The daily ebb and flow of bacterial populations becomes less pronounced, less coordinated, and this microbial circadian disruption appears to contribute to metabolic problems, inflammatory issues, even mood disturbances. We're still in the early stages of understanding the microbiome light connection. The field is young, the mechanisms are complex, the interactions between host and microbes are intricate, but the basic principle is becoming clear. You and your microbiome are not separate entities. You're a holobiont, a composite organism, and light influences the whole system, not just your human cells. This changes how we think about light exposure. It's not just affecting you, it's affecting the trillions of organisms living in and on you. It's reshaping ecosystems, selecting for certain species over others, altering metabolic outputs, influencing the balance between beneficial and potentially harmful bacteria. And this ecosystem in turn feeds back to affect your health. A healthy, diverse, well-balanced microbiome supports digestion, immune function, even mental health. An imbalanced microbiome, called dysbiosis, is associated with numerous health problems, from inflammatory bowel disease to obesity to depression. So when you think about getting sunlight, or managing your circadian rhythms, or protecting your sleep by avoiding light at night, you're not just taking care of yourself. You're taking care of an entire ecosystem that depends on you for its environment. And that ecosystem, when properly supported, takes care of you in return. The skin bacteria that protect against pathogens, the gut bacteria that produce vitamins and break down otherwise indigestible foods, the microbial communities that train your immune system and maintain barriers between your internal environment and the external world. All of them, in some way, are influenced by your relationship with light. It's humbling, really. This incredibly simple thing, photons from the sun, electromagnetic radiation, light, reaches so deep into biological organization that it's affecting not just your cells, but entire communities of organisms living within you. It's reshaping microscopic ecosystems, according to patterns that have been unfolding for as long as bacteria and light have coexisted, which is to say for billions of years. You are not just a person. You are a walking ecosystem, a host to multitudes. And light, that ancient signal, that primordial force, speaks not just to you, but to them as well. It shapes your microbiome just as surely as it shapes your sleep, your mood, your metabolism. And perhaps that's the deepest lesson here. Nothing exists in isolation. Every system connects to every other system. Every signal ripples outward in ways we're only beginning to comprehend. Light touches your eyes and influences bacteria in your gut. Sunlight on your skin alters immune cells in your blood and microbial communities on your surface. It's all connected, all responding to light, all part of the same intricate web of cause and effect, signal and response, ancient relationships playing out in your body right now, at this very moment. So when the sun rises tomorrow, remember, you're not just seeing light, you're hosting light. Your ecosystem is responding to it, reshaping itself, finding new balance. And in that response, in that constant adaptation, life continues. Yours and the countless microscopic lives you carry with you, all synchronized, however imperfectly, to the rhythm of light and dark that has structured existence since the beginning. Throughout this journey, we've been talking about light as something that happens to us, something we're exposed to, something we respond to, something that shapes our biology, whether we're aware of it or not. But there's another side to this story, one where light becomes intentional, controlled, therapeutic, where physicians and researchers harness specific wavelengths at precise doses to treat disease, relieve pain, and promote healing. Light, it turns out, isn't just something we live under. It's also something medicine can wield. Let's start with one of the most established uses: UVB phototherapy for psoriasis. Psoriasis is an autoimmune condition where skin cells multiply too rapidly, creating thick, scaly patches that are often itchy, painful, and psychologically distressing. The underlying problem is an overactive immune response in the skin, T cells and other immune components attacking healthy tissue. And one of the most effective treatments? Controlled exposure to UVB radiation. The same wavelengths that produce vitamin D, the same ones we discussed earlier in the context of sunlight and skin. But here, the exposure is carefully calibrated. Specific wavelengths, measured doses, gradual increases to build tolerance while minimizing burning risk. UVB phototherapy works by suppressing the overactive immune response in the skin. It slows down the excessive cell division, reduces inflammation, and allows the skin to heal and normalize. For many people with psoriasis, regular phototherapy sessions can dramatically improve their quality of life, reducing the extent and severity of plaques without the side effects of systemic medications. There's also a more intensive version called Puva, which combines a light sensitizing medication called Psoralen with UVA exposure. The Psoralen makes the skin more responsive to UVA, allowing for stronger therapeutic effects. PUVA can be even more effective than UVB alone for severe cases, but it's also riskier, more potential for side effects, greater cumulative UV exposure, higher long-term skin cancer risk, so it's reserved for cases where the benefits clearly outweigh the risks. But UV isn't the only part of the spectrum being used medically. Red light and near-infrared light, wavelengths longer than visible red, between about 600 and 1,000 nanometers, have shown the ability to reduce inflammation and promote tissue repair. This application, called photobiomodulation or low-level light therapy, works through different mechanisms than UV. Red and near-infrared light penetrate deeper into tissue than shorter wavelengths. They can reach through skin into muscle, even into bone, and at the cellular level, they appear to influence mitochondria, the energy-producing structures inside cells. Light in this range may enhance mitochondrial function, increase cellular energy production, reduce oxidative stress, and modulate inflammatory pathways. The result? Faster healing of wounds, reduced inflammation in injured tissues, relief from certain types of pain. Photobiomodulation is being studied and used for conditions ranging from muscle injuries to arthritis to nerve damage. Athletes use it for recovery. Physical therapists incorporate it into treatment plans. Dentists use it to promote healing after oral surgery. The evidence base is still developing. Some applications have stronger support than others, and the optimal parameters, wavelength, intensity, duration, frequency, are still being refined. But the basic principle is sound. Certain wavelengths of light, at appropriate doses, can influence cellular function in ways that promote healing. Infrared light, particularly the thermal effects of longer infrared wavelengths, has long been used to relieve chronic pain. Infrared heat lamps, heating pads, saunas, all of these deliver infrared radiation that penetrates tissue and generates warmth. That warmth increases blood flow, relaxes muscles, and can provide significant pain relief for conditions like arthritis, chronic back pain, muscle tension. This isn't the same mechanism as photobiomodulation, where the effects are more about cellular signaling than heat. This is straightforward thermal therapy, using light's ability to carry energy and convert it to warmth in tissue. But it's still light doing the work, still photons interacting with your body to produce a therapeutic effect. Blue light, particularly around 415 nanometers, is used to treat acne. Not the scarring or inflammation itself, but the bacteria that contribute to acne formation. Propionibacterium acnes. This bacterium produces compounds called porphyrins that absorb blue light. When those porphyrins absorb blue photons, they generate reactive oxygen species that kill the bacteria. So blue light therapy for acne works as a targeted antimicrobial treatment. It reduces bacterial populations in the skin without antibiotics, without the resistance concerns that come with antibiotic use. Combined with other acne treatments, it can help keep bacterial populations in check and reduce breakouts. Red light, meanwhile, addresses the inflammatory component of acne. While blue light kills bacteria, red light reduces the inflammation that makes acne lesions painful and visible. Used together, blue light for bacterial control, red light for inflammation, phototherapy can address multiple aspects of acne pathology simultaneously. And light's medical applications go beyond dermatology. In dentistry, blue light is used to cure composite fillings. The filling material contains photoinitiators, molecules that react to blue light by triggering polymerization, the chemical process that hardens the composite. The dentist places the soft filling material shapes it to fit the cavity, then shines a blue light to instantly harden it. What would have taken minutes or hours to set on its own happens in seconds, thanks to precisely applied blue photons. Throughout all of these therapeutic applications, safety is paramount. Light, like any medical tool, has a therapeutic window, doses that are beneficial and doses that are harmful. Too little light and there's no therapeutic effect. Too much and you risk cellular damage, burns, long-term consequences like skin cancer or eye damage. That's why medical phototherapy is carefully controlled. Exposure times are measured, wavelengths are specific, intensities are calibrated. Safety limits are established based on research into what doses prevent cellular damage while still providing benefit. Medical-grade light devices undergo testing and regulation to ensure they deliver consistent, safe exposures. This is very different from uncontrolled light exposure, sitting in the sun for hours, using unregulated devices bought online, exposing eyes to intense light without protection. Medical phototherapy succeeds precisely because it's controlled, measured, administered by professionals who understand both the potential and the risks. And the field continues to expand. Researchers are exploring light therapy for wound healing in diabetic patients where poor circulation makes healing difficult. They're investigating whether certain wavelengths can help with neurodegenerative conditions by supporting mitochondrial function in brain cells. There's research into using light to treat certain cancers, photodynamic therapy, where light-sensitive drugs accumulate in cancer cells and are then activated by specific wavelengths to destroy those cells. Some of these applications are established medical practice. Others are experimental, still being researched, not yet ready for widespread use. But they all represent the same fundamental insight. Light is not just passive illumination. It's energy, information, influence. And when we understand how different wavelengths interact with different biological systems, we can use light as a tool to heal, to treat, to restore function. This is medicine harnessing photons, taking the same light that evolved to regulate sleep and synchronize rhythms and produce vitamins, and refining it, focusing it, applying it with intention and precision. It's the intersection of ancient biology and modern technology, of evolutionary adaptations and clinical innovation. Your body has been responding to light for millions of years. Every photoreceptor, every light-sensitive protein, every circadian pathway, they all evolved in response to the sun's daily cycle. And now we're learning to speak that language more fluently, to use light deliberately to influence the very systems that evolved to respond to it. It's elegant, really, not fighting against biology, but working with it. Not introducing foreign substances or invasive procedures, but using the fundamental environmental signal that your body already knows how to interpret, just refined, controlled, optimized for therapeutic benefit. And as our understanding deepens, as research uncovers more about how different wavelengths affect different cells and tissues, the medical applications of light will likely expand even further. We're still in the early chapters of this story, still discovering what's possible when we treat light not just as something to see by, but as a therapeutic agent in its own right. Light is medicine. It's been there all along, written into our biology. We're just now learning to read the prescription. We've spent so much time talking about light as beneficial, how it regulates sleep, supports mood, even heals tissue. But there's another experience of light we need to acknowledge, one that affects millions of people and transforms light from a neutral or positive force into something genuinely painful. For people who experience migraines, light isn't always illumination or information. Sometimes it's agony. Photophobia, literally fear of light, though discomfort or pain is more accurate, affects the vast majority of people who suffer from migraines. During a migraine attack, light that would normally be perfectly tolerable becomes intensely aversive. Bright rooms feel assaultive. Even modest indoor lighting can worsen the pain, the nausea, the overall misery of the migraine experience. And for many migraine sufferers, the sensitivity doesn't completely disappear between attacks. Even during pain-free periods, they may be more sensitive to light than people who don't experience migraines. Bright environments that others find energizing might feel harsh, uncomfortable, draining. Fluorescent lighting that most people barely notice might trigger discomfort or even precipitate an attack. This isn't weakness or exaggeration, it's neurobiology. The same pathways that allow light to influence your brain, those melanopsin-containing retinal cells we discussed, the connections to deep brain structures, become hyperactive or dysregulated in migraine. Light signals that should be processed normally instead trigger exaggerated responses in pain-processing regions of the brain. Research has shown that migraine patients are sensitive to many wavelengths across the visible spectrum. It's not just one color or type of light. It's light in general. Blue light tends to be particularly problematic, which makes sense given how strongly blue wavelengths activate those non-visual photoreceptive pathways. But red light can also trigger discomfort, as can white light that contains the full spectrum. However, there's an interesting exception that's emerged from research. Narrowband green light, a very specific shade of green, around 530 nanometers, appears to be better tolerated by many migraine sufferers. Studies have found that this particular wavelength is less likely to worsen migraine pain and, in some cases, may even provide mild relief. The mechanism isn't entirely clear yet, but it may relate to how this wavelength is processed by the visual system and how it activates or doesn't activate certain pain-related pathways. It's a narrow therapeutic window, a specific color that somehow bypasses the usual photophobic response. Some companies have even developed lighting products based on this research, creating green-tinted bulbs or lenses specifically for migraine sufferers. But prevention is often more important than management during an attack, and two characteristics of light are particularly potent migraine triggers: brightness and flicker. Bright light, especially sudden exposure to intense light, can precipitate a migraine in susceptible individuals. Walking from a dim indoor space into brilliant sunlight, being in an overly lit environment with harsh overhead lighting, the glare from a computer screen in a dark room. These bright exposures don't just cause discomfort, they can actually trigger the cascade of neurological events that becomes a full migraine attack. Flickering light is even more problematic. Fluorescent lights that strobe imperceptibly to most people. LED lights with inadequate drivers that pulse at frequencies you might not consciously detect, but your visual system registers. Even natural flicker, sunlight through trees as you drive, strobe lights at a concert, the refresh rate of certain screens. For migraine-prone brains, these flickering stimuli seem to create a kind of neurological irritation. The visual cortex becomes overstimulated, firing in patterns that can trigger the spreading cortical depression, the wave of electrical activity across the brain that's thought to initiate migraine. It's as if the flickering light is vibrating a neural system that's already on edge, pushing it past a threshold into dysfunction. And here's what makes photophobia particularly interesting from a neurological perspective. It's driven largely by non-visual retinal pathways. Remember those melanopsin-containing cells that connect to circadian centers and mood-regulating brain regions? They also connect to areas involved in pain processing, particularly a region called the thalamus, which acts as a relay station for sensory information, including pain signals. Studies with completely blind individuals, people with no functional rods or cones who cannot form visual images, have shown that many still experience photophobia during migraines. Light still worsens their pain, even though they can't see it. This tells us that photophobia isn't about the brightness or appearance of light in a visual sense. It's about how light signals reach pain processing regions of the brain through these non-visual pathways. The melanopsin cells detect light and send signals through the optic nerve, but instead of going primarily to the visual cortex, these signals branch to areas involved in autonomic function, emotion, and pain modulation. During a migraine, when pain pathways are already hypersensitive, these light signals amplify the pain rather than simply providing information about brightness. It's as if the wiring that usually helps coordinate your body's response to environmental light, adjusting circadian rhythms, influencing alertness, gets cross-connected with pain circuits during migraine. Light becomes interpreted not just as light, but as a pain-amplifying stimulus. This is why people experiencing migraines instinctively seek darkness. It's not just that light is uncomfortable. It's that removing light actually reduces the pain. Dark rooms, eye masks, blackout curtains, these aren't just comfort measures. They're interventions that reduce activation of the pathways contributing to the migraine pain itself. And for people who live with chronic migraine or frequent attacks, this relationship with light becomes a constant consideration. Which environments to avoid? What lighting to use at home? How to navigate a world designed for people whose brains don't interpret light as painful. There's often a lack of understanding from people who don't experience this. Comments like, "Just turn on the lights," or "It can't be that bad," or the assumption that light sensitivity is psychological or dramatic. But research has clearly demonstrated the neurological basis of photophobia. Brain imaging studies show different patterns of activation in response to light in migraine patients compared to controls. Physiological measurements confirm heightened responses in pain pathways. This is real. This is biology. And for people living with it, light, this fundamental aspect of daily life that most people barely think about, becomes something to manage, to avoid, to carefully calibrate around. The challenge is that we live in an increasingly bright world. LED lighting that's more intense than older technologies, screens everywhere, constantly glowing, urban environments that never truly get dark. For people with migraine, navigating this landscape requires constant vigilance and adaptation. Sunglasses, even indoors sometimes. Hats with brims to shield from overhead lighting. dimming screens as much as possible, avoiding environments with known triggers like fluorescent-lit stores or flickering displays. It's exhausting in its own way, this constant management of something that others take completely for granted. And yet, understanding the mechanisms helps. Knowing that photophobia is driven by specific pathways suggests potential interventions, targeted therapies that might modulate those pathways, environmental modifications based on research about which wavelengths and intensities are most and least problematic. Even something as simple as validating the experience. Yes, light sensitivity is real, it's neurological, it's not in your head in the psychological sense, even though it absolutely is in your head in the literal neurological sense. The research into narrowband green light offers hope that we might find ways to preserve some quality of life around lighting, even during attacks. The understanding of flicker as a trigger suggests that better lighting technology, LED drivers that produce truly steady output, displays with higher refresh rates, could reduce trigger exposure in daily life. And as we learn more about the specific brain pathways involved, there may be therapeutic interventions that can reduce photophobia without requiring people to live in darkness. Medications that modulate the relevant circuits. Neuromodulation techniques that calm the hypersensitive pathways. Ways of preserving normal light exposure and all its benefits while reducing the pathological pain response. For now, though, millions of people navigate a complex relationship with light, needing it for all the reasons we've discussed: circadian regulation, mood, vitamin D, all of it, but also finding it painful, triggering, overwhelming. It's a difficult balance, and one that requires compassion and understanding from those of us fortunate enough not to experience it. Light, for most of us, is benign or beneficial, but for some, it's a source of genuine suffering. And acknowledging that, understanding the neuroscience behind it, and working towards solutions, that's part of the complete story of light and human biology. Not just what light does when everything is working normally, but also what happens when the systems that process light become dysregulated, turning a fundamental environmental signal into something painful. It's all part of the same intricate neural machinery, just functioning at the extremes rather than the middle. And perhaps in time, we'll find ways to help those systems recalibrate, to reduce the suffering, to allow everyone to exist in light without pain. That's the hope, anyway. And research continues, slowly illuminating the darkness of understanding, bringing us closer to solutions. We've traveled far together through the science of light, from how it enters your eyes to how it shapes your sleep, your mood, your metabolism, even the bacteria living within you. But before we close, let's look at the edges of what we know, the boundaries where science is still discovering, still innovating, still revealing capabilities we barely imagined. Let's talk about what's possible, what's coming, and what it all means. Here's something remarkable that most people never realize. You can perceive polarized light. Not clearly, not easily, but it's there. A faint ability hidden in your visual system that rarely gets acknowledged. Light waves oscillate, vibrating in different directions as they travel. Usually, light is unpolarized, meaning the waves vibrate in all directions randomly. But sometimes, after reflecting off water, glass, or certain surfaces, light becomes polarized with waves aligned in a particular direction. And under the right conditions, if you know what to look for, you can actually see this polarization. The phenomenon is called Heidinger's brushes, named after the Austrian physicist who described it. Look at a uniformly bright surface, like a clear blue sky or a white wall, and you might perceive a faint, yellowish, hourglass-shaped pattern that appears and disappears, rotating if you tilt your head. This pattern isn't really there in the light itself. It's created by the structure of your macula, the central part of your retina. The molecules in your macula absorb light differently based on its polarization, creating this subtle visual effect. Most people go their entire lives without noticing it, but once you know to look, it's there. A hidden layer of perception, a whisper of information your visual system can detect. And this isn't just a curiosity. Understanding polarization perception has medical applications. Changes in how someone perceives Heidinger's brushes can indicate macular degeneration or other retinal conditions. Polarization can be used in eye diagnostics, helping ophthalmologists assess the health of the macula in ways that standard vision tests can't. Polarized sunglasses, too, are based on this principle. They filter out horizontally polarized light, which is typically what creates glare from water or road surfaces. By blocking that specific orientation of light waves, polarized lenses reduce glare dramatically, while allowing other light through. It's a simple application of understanding how light's orientation affects perception and comfort. But the cutting edge of light science goes far beyond enhanced vision or diagnostics. Researchers are now using light to control neurons directly, to reach into the brain and flip switches with unprecedented precision. This field is called optogenetics, and it's genuinely revolutionary. Here's how it works. Scientists genetically modify neurons to express light-sensitive proteins, similar to the opsins found in your eyes. Once these neurons contain light-sensitive channels, they can be activated or silenced by shining specific wavelengths of light on them. Blue light might activate them, yellow light might inhibit them. It's like installing a remote control into individual brain cells. This has transformed neuroscience research. Instead of using drugs that affect the whole brain, or electrical stimulation that activates many cells at once, researchers can now target specific types of neurons in specific brain regions and control their activity with millisecond precision using light. They can ask questions that were previously impossible. What happens if we activate just these dopamine neurons? What if we silence just this pathway during a particular behavior? The insights coming from optogenetics are rewriting our understanding of brain circuits, behavior, mood, memory, nearly every aspect of neuroscience. And while the technique currently requires genetic modification and surgically implanted fiber optics to deliver light into the brain, researchers are working toward less invasive approaches, potentially even therapeutic applications for humans. Imagine treating Parkinson's disease or depression by using light to precisely modulate specific neural circuits that have become dysfunctional. And it gets stranger. Scientists have used light to simulate smells in animals. By activating olfactory neurons with light instead of chemical odorants, They can make an animal perceive a smell that isn't actually there, a phantom scent created purely by light pulses. The animal's brain responds as if it's detecting a real odor, triggering appropriate behaviors, approaching or avoiding, depending on what the artificially created smell signifies. This demonstrates something profound. Perception isn't about the physical stimulus itself, but about the patterns of neural activity the stimulus creates. Smell is just a pattern of activation in olfactory neurons. If you can recreate that pattern with light, the brain perceives smell, even though no odor molecules are present. This opens extraordinary possibilities, not just for research, but potentially for prosthetics, for restoring lost senses, for creating entirely new forms of sensory input. If we can use light to create sensory experiences directly at the neural level, the boundaries between reality and simulation begin to blur in fascinating ways. And the precision continues to astound. Research has shown that neural timing differences as small as 10 milliseconds can be detected by the brain. 10 milliseconds, 100th of a second. That's how precise your neural circuits are, how fine-grained the temporal patterns that carry information through your nervous system. This matters because it reveals the incredible computational sophistication happening inside your skull every moment. When you perceive simultaneity, when you integrate information from different senses, when you track motion or predict trajectories, all of it depends on timing precision measured in milliseconds. Your brain is constantly tracking these tiny temporal differences, using them to construct your experience of reality. And now, with optogenetics and other light-based techniques, researchers can manipulate neural activity with that same temporal precision. They can activate one neuron, then another 10 milliseconds later, and observe how that timing difference affects behavior or perception. They can test theories about neural coding that would have been impossible to investigate just a decade ago. We're entering an era where light isn't just something we study in the context of vision or circadian rhythms. It's becoming a fundamental tool for understanding and potentially modifying brain function itself. Light is a probe, a controller, a therapeutic agent acting at the most fundamental level of neural computation. And all of this, optogenetics, polarization perception, temporal precision, sensory simulation, all of it traces back to the same basic property. Light is information. It carries information to your eyes. It carries information to your circadian clock. It carries information to your skin, your immune cells, your microbiome. And now we're learning to use light to carry information directly to neurons, to deliver precise signals that can illuminate not just spaces, but understanding itself. The future will likely bring applications we can barely imagine today. Prosthetic vision systems that restore sight by using light to directly stimulate the visual cortex. Treatments for neurological conditions that use light-based neural modulation instead of drugs. Diagnostic tools that read health status from how light interacts with your tissues. Maybe even enhancements, ways of expanding sensory capabilities or augmenting cognitive function using light-based techniques. But whatever specific technologies emerge, they'll all be building on the same foundation we've explored throughout this journey: the deep, ancient relationship between light and life. the fact that organisms evolved to respond to light long before complex brains or eyes existed, the reality that every cell in your body, in some way, is still listening to light, still responding to it, still using it to coordinate function and maintain health. Light shaped life on Earth long before humans existed. The first photosynthetic organisms, capturing light energy billions of years ago. The evolution of photoreceptors, allowing life to detect and respond to illumination. The development of eyes, of circadian clocks, of all the light-responsive systems we've discussed. And through all of that evolutionary history, light remained constant, the sun rising and setting, seasons changing, the reliable cycle of day and night that life could depend on, could organize around, could use as a foundation for increasingly complex adaptations. You are the inheritor of that history. Every photoreceptor in your eyes, every light-sensitive protein in your retina, every neural pathway that responds to illumination, they're all ancient, refined over countless generations, optimized through evolutionary time. And every cell in your body still listens to light, still responds, still participates in the conversation between organism and environment that began billions of years ago and continues in you right now at this very moment. So as you rest here tonight, as you allow yourself to drift towards sleep, remember, you're not separate from the natural world. You're part of it, shaped by the same light that grows plants and sets circadian rhythms and produces vitamins and heals wounds and synchronizes ecosystems. The darkness you're embracing now is just as important as the light you'll meet tomorrow. Both are signals, both carry information, both are necessary for the health, the balance, the proper functioning of this remarkable biological system you inhabit. Thank you for taking this journey through the science of light, for your curiosity, your attention, your willingness to explore these connections between photons and physiology, between illumination and life. May you rest well. May the darkness be complete and restorative. May your circadian rhythms align, your melatonin rise, your heart rate slow, and your body find the deep rest it needs. And when morning comes, when light returns and you open your eyes to a new day, may you see it differently, not just as brightness, but as information, not just as illumination, but as the ancient signal that connects you to everything alive, everything that has ever lived under the sun. Sleep well, and let the light in its absence do its quiet, essential work. Good night.